Last week, we tackled the loyalty paradox, why satisfied customers still quietly walk out the door, how appointment availability is a silent defection trigger most teams never see coming, and why the gap between fine and I'm definitely coming back comes down to whether a customer has a real reason to return. If you missed it, go back and listen. But today, we're getting into something that affects every service lane in the country, whether you realize it or not. Your customer base doesn't just have one set of expectations. It has 4 decades worth of them. Boomers and Gen Z are walking into the same service drive, but they want a completely different experience. And if you're communicating, scheduling, and selling the same way for all of them, you're probably missing the mark for most of them. This is episode 4, The Generational Divide. We're going to show you what the data actually says about how different age groups schedule service, how they want to be communicated with during and between visits, and what it takes to earn their trust and approval on recommended work, because the answers are not always the same across the board. If you're trying to serve a customer base that spans 4 decades of expectations with one set of processes, this episode is for you. Welcome to Retention Roadmap, Navigating Service Success for New Car Dealerships. I'm your host, Bill Springer. Today's podcast is sponsored by DriveSure. DriveSure helps new car dealerships remain the go-to provider for maintenance, tires, and repairs. For information on how DriveSure can help your dealership, go to drivesure.com/dealership solutions. So let's start with 4 groups and 4 realities. The generational data. First of all, let's talk about scheduling preferences because the split is sharper than what it looks. Let's start with the overall numbers. 43% of all customers prefer online scheduling. 44% prefer to call. It sounds like a dead heat, but that headline hides a sharp divide. For customers under 54, online scheduling is the dominant preference. Over 60% choose it. But for customers 55 and older, that drops to just 34%, with 50% preferring to call. That same older group is also more than twice as likely to want to book their next appointment before they leave the dealership, 11% versus 3 to 4% for younger customers. Why does this matter? Well, a clunky phone system is a defection risk for older customers. A booking flow that shows a 2-week wait with no alternatives is a defection risk for younger ones. Both failures are invisible. You never get the complaint. You just see the gap in your numbers. So let's talk about communication between visits, because you can't just pick one channel in 2026. Overall, 44% prefer email between visits, while 40% prefer text. Again, the aggregate hides the story. For under 34, text is number 1 at 54%, and email drops to 35%. For the 35 to 54 age group, text still leads at 46% and email at 39%. For 55 and older, email reclaims the top spot at 47% and text falls to 37%. So what this means is if you've gone all in on text, you may be missing your most loyal segment. If you're still primarily using email, you're likely missing your younger customers almost entirely. For communication during the visit, text is now table stakes for everyone. This is where generations converge the most. Overall, 72% of customers prefer text updates while their car is being serviced. Email is basically gone for this purpose, down to 3% in 2026 from 12% in 2023. For the under 35 group, 83% prefer text during service. For 35 to 54 age group, 74% prefer text, and for 55 and older, still 70%. Even older customers have made the switch to texting. As age increases, more customers want to call rather than a text, but text still wins by more than 2 to 1 in every age group. The practical answer is text first, with a real phone call as a meaningful backup for older customers who want it, not the other way around. Next, let's talk about prepaid maintenance, a younger customer play with a price catch. 78% of customers overall say they'd buy a prepaid maintenance package, but under 55, that's 87%. For customers 55 and older, it drops, and 27% say they'd never buy one at any price. But here's the catch. Younger customers are the most willing to buy, but they also require the deepest discounts. 61% of customers under 35 say they need more than 20% off. For the 35 to 54 group, it's 55%. And for 55 plus, it's only 41%. So here's the opportunity. Younger customers are exactly who you need to lock in before they build habits somewhere else. But you have to meet them on price or on value. Adding road hazard protection and renewable roadside assistance make more than 2/3 of customers more likely to buy a prepaid maintenance bundle, regardless of age. Now let's move on to video inspections and our findings there. These are most powerful with your hardest to convince customers. This question was new to the 2026 report, and the age breakdown tells a clear story. When asked whether a video inspection would make them more likely to approve recommended work, 64% of customers under 35 said yes. 47% of the 35 to 54 group said yes. And for customers 55 and older, only 37% said yes, and 54% said maybe. Video inspections have the biggest impact with the segments that is also the most price sensitive and the hardest to convert. For younger customers who are skeptical about cost, seeing the problem is what gets the repair approved. That's not just a transparency tool, it's a revenue tool. Now let's talk about why these differences exist. These aren't just technology preferences, they're habits, expectations, and trust signals that were shaped by completely different eras of customer service. Understanding what's driving them is what separates a dealership that adapts from one that just hopes the same approach works for everyone. Let's talk about older customers. Relationship driven, high value, and easily alienated by the wrong communication channel. Customers 55 and older built their service habits in an era when calling the dealership was the only option. And knowing your service advisor by name meant something. They want to talk to one person. They value continuity and familiarity. They're not resistant to technology. They're loyal to the channel that's always worked for them. This is also your most loyal segment overall. Getting their communication preferences wrong is an especially costly mistake. You're not just irritating a customer, you're potentially losing the one who's hardest to replace. For younger customers, the digital first, price sensitive, and easiest to lose before loyalty forms are the ones we're going to talk about next. These customers under 35 expect to do everything online: scheduling, updates, payment. Any friction in the digital experience is a reason to try somewhere else. And since they haven't yet built a long-term relationship with a dealership, there's nothing to hold them when friction shows up. They're also the most price-sensitive group in the study. Here's the good news. They're the most responsive to trust signals like video inspection and the most open to prepaid maintenance if the offer is compelling. Lock them in now before a competitor does. That's the takeaway. For the 35 to 54 middle group, they're often overlooked, but they're usually the most balanced opportunity for the dealership. This group is comfortable online, but still values a phone call when something unexpected happens. They're solid prepaid maintenance bundle candidates with relatively flexible discount expectations. They respond well to text during the visit and to either email or text for outreach. They're often the most overlooked segment in generational strategy and worth paying attention to specifically. Here's the broader point. These aren't just niche edge cases. Your service drive sees all three of these groups often on the same morning. The question isn't whether to serve them differently, it's whether your systems and your advisors are actually set up to do it. So, the generational divide is real. The data is clear about what each segment wants. Now let's talk about what to do about it. 3 things you can act on right now to start serving all of them better. Action number 1, audit both scheduling channels, not just the one you think matters. Don't just check whether you offer online scheduling. Walk through it as a customer over 55. What does that experience look like when there's no availability for the next 10 days? Is there a message, a waitlist option, a prompt to call, or is it a dead end? Then do the same for your phone experience. Does it get answered quickly? Is the hold time reasonable? Is there a callback option? For older customers, a bad phone experience is the equivalent of a broken booking flow for a younger one. Both failures are invisible. No complaint, no call, no feedback. You just see the gap in retention numbers months later. The fix is to audit both as a customer, not as an operator. Action number 2, Match your outreach channel to your customer's age. You likely have age data tied to your customer records. Use it. For customers under 54, text should be your primary channel for service reminders and promotions. For customers 55 and older, email is still their top preference, so don't deprioritize it. For in-service updates, text is the default for virtually everyone. If your team isn't already using text to communicate while the vehicle is being serviced, the data is telling you that this is no longer a nice to have, it's a need to have. It's what 72% of your customers expect. So here's one practical step. Look at your CRM and see whether your communication preferences are actually segmented by age or whether everyone is getting the same message in the same channel. If it's the latter, there's a gap you can close quickly. Action number 3, deploy video inspections, especially for younger customers. If you're not already doing video multi-point inspections, make sure your advisors know where they have the most impact. The data is clear. Younger, more price-sensitive customers are the most likely to approve recommended work after seeing a video. That's not just about transparency. It's about repair order conversion. If you're not doing video inspections yet, the case is straightforward. Among customers who have actually received one, 66% say it makes them more likely to trust the dealership's recommendations, and 56% say it makes them more likely to approve the work. Those numbers are dramatically higher than for customers who haven't experienced one. They underestimate how much they'll value it until they see it. Start with younger customers if you're rolling it out. That's where the return on the investment is highest and where you need the most trust signal you can get. In closing, today we got into the generational divide and what it actually takes to serve a customer base that spans 4 decades of expectations. Scheduling, communication, prepaid maintenance bundles, video inspections. The data is consistent. What works for a 32-year-old is not what works for a 62-year-old. And in most service lanes, everyone is still getting the same experience. The dealerships pulling ahead on retention right now aren't necessarily doing more, they're doing it smarter. They're matching the experience to the customer. And the 2026 report gives you the data to do exactly that. If you want the full breakdown, scheduling preference by age, communication channel data, prepaid maintenance demand by age group, video inspection impact by generation, download the complete 2026 DriveSure Dealership Service Retention Report at drivesure.com/retention report. Next week, we're getting into something that's hiding in plain sight in most service lanes, the convenience economy. Nearly half of all customers say they use mobile service, but get this, almost none of them know their dealership even offers it. We'll show you what that demand versus awareness gap looks like and which amenities customers actually value enough to change their behavior. That's next week on Retention Roadmap. Download the report at drivesure.com/retention report. Share this episode with your service team, and we'll see you next week.